Quiet on set.
Okay.
Tero Documentary presents Filming in Thailand, a podcast for movie lovers with exclusive stories from behind the scenes.
Rolling sound
Sound rolling.
and action.
Hi, I'm your host Stéphane Lambert, and this is a new episode of Filming in Thailand. And here we are again. This is a new episode of Filming in Thailand with our guest Chris Lowenstein. So welcome and thank you for joining us today.
No, my pleasure. Thanks, Evan.
It's our pleasure, and especially knowing that you are always in a plane somewhere, from usually Chiang Mai to Bangkok and Bangkok to somewhere else.
Yeah, Bangkok, Chiang Mai.
Are
Every
you,
weekend this year.
are you coming straight from the airport today?
Yeah, I'm not. No.
Oh,
Look, if you caught me tomorrow, maybe.
So this episode of Filming in Thailand is a bit special. Filming in Thailand, was titled Filming in Thailand because there is this big industry of foreign production coming to Thailand and filming small budget, large budget, indie films, studio production. And what most of these project films shooting have in common is that you're involved. More or less.
Some of them.
So, Chris, are you filming in Thailand?
I'm definitely filming in Thailand.
What are you filming in Thailand?
I'm filming everything in Thailand all the time. In fact, one of my mottos is just keep filming.
Just keep filming.
Just keep filming. So if anything goes wrong or we have any issues, it's like, don't ask questions, just keep filming. And
Keep the camera rolling.
yeah, and we recently did a 23-year T-shirts for. We're actually 27. Living Films turns 27 this year.
But yourself, you are 23 years.
Yeah, there you go. Living Films started before me.
We want to know. We want to know.
Born into it. and one of our new logos mottos is just keep rolling.
So you've been filming in Thailand for 27 years.
Yeah, we started in '96.
What was the first project that kickstart the whole stuff?
Well, actually, I was freelancing before that, so I was ADing on feature films that we're shooting in Thailand.
Being an assistant director.
Yeah, exactly. So, making every excuse to get on a project that was shooting here originally before I moved permanently, and then Living Films was '96 when we started, and we actually started small. We started with a series of 5 or 6 documentaries. I love documentary. I still love to do documentary. And yeah, as you know, and I know that you love documentaries.
I
we
do.
have that in common.
This is also one of the things we have in common.
And also, I think, in as much as I've seen such a transformation of the film industry over the years I've been here doing this, I still love those roots. I love to do documentary. I love to do. We're quite misunderstood. I love to do smaller independent films. They're often bigger is not always better in filmmaking.
That's what my nutritionist told me. She was right.
I'm not wrong.
So you started 27 years ago in Thailand as a freelancer, and then you went into creating this living film company that is now involved in many of what is being shot in Thailand. We'll talk in the third part of this podcast about the business, the prospect of this business, and before that, in the second part, we will discuss about the actual industry. But now let's try to learn more about your, what brought you here. And you were not born in Thailand. Where are you from?
Yeah, well, I was born in South America, in Chile. But my formative years were in Portland, Oregon.
So you're an American from the U.S.
American.
Moved straight to Thailand?
No, I was in Italy for a year first, and then but I moved to Thailand when I was 24. So that's an age where I think you're able to integrate. A lot of people move when they're older and maybe more established. So I really established my career here and with Living Films.
Was it a decision you made, or just opportunities came up and you said, yeah, I mean, basically at 20, in the 20s, we don't say, I'm going to do this. So it's just things, opportunities are coming and you seize them.
It was never that planned. And I'm not that ambitious. So I really am not. People are surprised by that. But it wasn't like a grand scheme to create this amazing production company or something. So it kind of happened organically, I would say. And but when I first came to Thailand, I just, I fell in love with it immediately. And I traveled a lot as a kid with my parents, and being born in South America, etc. And I think that maybe I was Thai in my last life or something, but like even learning the language felt like remembering as opposed to learning, maybe. So I just felt like, when I was a kid, I was always smiling all the time and people thought I was really weird. And when I came here, I suddenly wasn't that weird. I was like, I fit in, and I was like, oh, this is my country. And so then to be in a stressful industry like the film industry, I mean, our projects, there's millions of dollars on the line and there's a lot of stress and we work incredible hours. And to do that in a kind of feel-good, Buddhist, relaxed country is like a perfect blend for me.
You're part of this Thai landscape. Would you say that you have contributed to shaping this landscape?
I think we could claim that.
In what way?
The industry progressed a lot in my first years. So I was freelancing for a while. It was over 30 years freelance, when I started, and then I think with Living Films we started slow and we weren't in a rush, and so we kind of, it happened naturally. And I think as that happened, the industry progressed. So I think I was the first production company with a website in Thailand, for example. And then I remember there was several production companies that copied our website word for word.
Okay.
I thought that was really interesting. So I was like, so we are kind of leading the way already. And then...
Are they still around?
I'm sure not. Production companies don't last that long. It's not like banks or something. They have production companies tend to come and go.
Was there a moment or a project that, the turning point, being a service production company, like others, and suddenly you become the person to go to when there is a huge budget, because you're handling huge budget once in a while?
I'm not sure when exactly that happened. I think...
when there are too many zeros for the calculator, usually it's a big budget.
Time for a new calculator. I'm not sure, but I think what happens in our industry is, and why production companies come and go, is that one of the main factors in hiring people to make a film is your trust in the producers, essentially. Your trust in the people making that project, that they'll treat it like their own, that they'll treat the budget as if it was their own money they were spending, and just take it really seriously and try to make the best product they possibly can. And because films, features, TV series, documentaries, because they take so much work, blood and sweat, that by the end of a project, you really know who the people are you're working with on that show. And so by just working all the time, you gain these amazing connections that, that I think it one leads to the next. So I think it's really the way we make a film that's, $2 million or $200 million is not that dissimilar, actually. It's just more zeros. But our systems are all the same, and you still need just as much trust in a producer making a $2 million film as a $200 million film, because I know there's more at stake for $200 million, but it's all the same scale. And I feel like, you need to have a team you really trust.
What makes a $200 million budget a $200 million budget comparing to a $2 million budget? What, the fees you pay to the actors, how much you charge because you needed to earn more, or what's the difference?
It's a valid question. I mean, bigger scenes in general, a bigger scope, let's say. I think with the advent of CGI, budgets you would think the CGI could help, but they actually got bigger. So,
What is that? The CGI itself costs money?
CGI itself costs money, and the filmmaker's vision is unlimited. So you can have a blank slate versus, sometimes, and I really believe that having budget constraints adds to creativity. So a lot of times too much money is not good. We did a project a while back, which was, in a way put us on the map, which was the Hangover Part 2. And, the director had carte blanche from the studio because Hangover Part 1 made so much money. I think it made $1 billion. So you have a director who has carte blanche, and that's not easy on producers because, so for example, we had a sequence, I don't know if you've seen the film, where there's a car chase in Chinatown at night. And so we went to block out for 4 nights, 4-block radius of Chinatown.
In Bangkok.
In Bangkok. I mean, it's insane.
Which is already jammy without the cars. So.
Normally, if a director asks me that, I'm like, oh, we could never afford that. But in this case, the question is, well, how much will it cost? And to even answer that question takes like 3 weeks of hard work. And then they're like, okay, let's go for it. Oh, no.
They said yes.
Yeah.
In this particular movie, Hangover Part 2, you have the scene in the red light district and you have the scene over Bangkok. Yeah. At a time where drones were not, easily available.
That's true.
Tell me first about the scene in the red light district where it seems that, you own the place.
We didn't really.
What do you mean, not really?
Well, we paid every bar, but we can't really stop people from going through the street. That would be...
You didn't close the street completely.
That's one of the times where I was like, we'll never afford that. And they're like, okay, we believe you. And so what we do in a sequence like that is we put up signs. It's kind of a Hollywood gag. We put up signs at the end of the street that say, if you pass this sign, you're giving your permission to be in this picture. And it's true. And we take pictures of the signs, for proof later if there's ever an issue. But
so many people just turn around.
Some people turn around and some people don't see the sign, I'm sure. And a red light district is one of the few places you actually don't want somebody who's not an extra or in the movie to be seen in a major motion picture. So what we do is our trick is to put a bunch of our own people in there to block the real people.
Okay.
And make it look really full. So you're getting like natural production value from the actual people on the street, and you have your own in wardrobe. And so that's kind of how we did it. We did it like, and then part of it's in the editing. You want to make sure. And actually, one of the hardest parts on that street was to get copyrights on the different
signs,
the different signs and names of the bars, which can be quite lewd.
Yeah. There is another part. You're on the top of this building. People who are familiar with Bangkok know this building. It was one of the first moon bar, rooftop bar, active in Bangkok. Fantastic view, fantastic setup. And they were famous for saying, no one can film us. It's not possible to bring a camera. Don't even take a picture. You have this place, but not this place to take a picture. And in Hangover Part 2, not only you are filming from, but you're filming towards the place. And it seems that you have a helicopter touring around.
2 helicopters.
2 helicopters. I've heard also that you had a kind of some sling attached. The camera was...
The stories get bigger each time. But yeah.
So what's the real story? You had helicopters.
We did have helicopters, and we shot them for 4 days, if I recall. And the manager, the mastermind behind Scirocco, State Towers, a man named Deepak, who's a renowned businessman, and
not the rapper, not.
No, but he did write a book which is quite popular
recently
on business, and he was tough, and everybody knew you couldn't get permission. And so sometimes when you know it's that hard, you go in a little bit easier because you're like, look, I'll give it a try.
Sure.
It's always my attitude. Like, even if it's impossible, well, let's see what we can do. And it was weird. And we had negotiations with him. And one of the things that I've done in Thailand, because I've been part of this whole kind of momentum on the film industry here, is that I've come up with a number of legal forms and agreements that I feel it's very un-American. They don't start totally one-sided. They kind of start fair to both parties. And so we wrote a contract for that, a draft contract for that location, and tried to make it as fair as possible. And Deepak read the whole thing, and then looked up at me. He's like, "No, I get the distinct idea that you were trying to make this fair for me and for you, and I'm not going to change a word."
Wow.
And so finally somebody recognized in a very important moment what we were trying to do. I could give you the Scirocco for 4 days for free, or I could give it to you for $1 million. And I was like, well, you probably know which one I want. And so he gave it to us for free. And we gave him some things in return, like he was able to have a hangover suite and a hangover martini and other things for his establishment, which I'm sure ended up making more money in the end.
For sure.
Yep.
I mean,
Yep.
when you look at what the career of this movie.
It was win-win, and it was amazing to pull it off.
So I'm sure you would agree with this quote from Martin Scorsese saying about producers that a great producer is a creative enabler, a visionary who knows how to navigate the complexities of the industry. Do you agree?
Absolutely.
Is the industry in Thailand more complicated to navigate than the industry in the US?
I know a lot more about the industry in Thailand than the U.S. these days, but probably it's much better than it used to be. But there's less procedures for standard things that you want to do
In Thailand.
So, you kind of have to navigate them yourself. So, and it's funny because even like government red tape or permissions to shoot places, and it's quite different depending on where you go and which province you shoot in, etc. And so, I mean, we often will complain about why it's so difficult, but then we say, well, if it was easier, we wouldn't have the niche we have. So maybe it's okay.
Do you think you would have had the same career in another Asian country?
Probably not.
Any specific reason that comes to mind?
I just love Thailand. So I feel like if I was in another country, maybe I would be in multiple places. Maybe I would have gone back and forth with the States more. And so, it's quite special, I think. And Thailand was a hidden gem for filmmaking for a long time. And it's certainly not the hidden gem anymore. As you can see, there's so many productions happening. But for a long while, I felt like, wow, we're onto something that people don't even realize. Can
you elaborate? What is it so special about Thailand? It's a difficult question because there is no straight answer.
I think it takes a while to see it, but first of all, I think the crews everywhere can be good in multiple countries, but somehow in Thailand they just thrive on showing what they can do, not through talk, not through boasting. They're modest, and yet they do it through their work. And there's this incredible work ethic. And yet, despite this really hard work ethic, it's not all about the work. People also want to have fun. So there's this, if you do it right, there's this fantastic atmosphere. So you're making something together with really professional crews, and yet you can have fun doing it. So I don't know,
the fun factor.
Fun factor. So
in
many
Thailand,
countries.
You would say sanuk. Huh?
So no, everybody wants to enjoy what they do, but it's not always like that, as we know. And a lot of jobs are just entirely too serious, and filmmaking can be too serious. And like if we have Western crew that come in to help us and they're too serious, it often doesn't work that well. You need a bit of humor, and you need to enjoy yourself, and you need to appreciate each other. And if that happens and it clicks, I think you have something special here that's really hard to find elsewhere.
I like to play a game with you. It's called the yes or no questions. Please answer by yes or no. It's going to go fast.
Ready.
Have you produced a film that has won an Academy Award?
Yes. No. Nominated.
Nominated? Wow.
Yeah.
Which one?
Tar.
Oh, yeah. Congrats. Have you ever worked with a major Hollywood studio?
Many.
Have you worked with well-known directors in the industry?
Yes.
Names?
Ron Howard, Oliver Stone, many.
And the mobile number
It doesn't work.
Do you have a strong network of industry connections?
Yes.
Have you produced films in various genres, from drama to comedy to action to documentaries?
Yes.
Have you produced a film that was adapted from a best-selling novel?
Yes.
Which one?
Good question.
You've produced The Serpent.
Yes.
It happened that I had a conference call, a video call with the real guy.
Oh, amazing. Tell me about that.
And he's claiming that, the series does not depict at all what happened, and it's completely a fantasy. Any idea why he would say that?
I mean, I think it's very hard for people to watch films based on their story. And I mean, a lot of that is based on fact. And we produced that in conjunction with the BBC. I think the BBC are some of the best producers of fiction that's based on real events. And so they're pretty good about doing their research. And we spoke to a lot of people who were involved in those events in the 70s. So I'm not sure. He just recently was released from prison, right?
Absolutely. And working on a book, on a documentary, wanted to have his own version of what happened. Interesting. But it's interesting to be able to confront, the drama, the fiction, and the real people. It's not the same take on what happened. Is on one side is a fantasy, based on true event or not, but then the other side is real life. So
yeah, it's very interesting. We also did this film recently, 13 Lives with Ron Howard, and again, you're basing a film on very recent real events, and I think, and you have characters representing real people who are still alive, and you need to make a script that's annotated to talk about where you get your facts from, and you need to be somewhat careful, and you need to try to sign on people who are represented or fictionalize their characters. And it's tricky, but also really interesting. And it's interesting to try to recreate scenes that actually happened. I love it.
You just mentioned about 13 Lives, the movie you produced, directed by Ron Howard, that was that happened. The production happened during COVID, I guess, during the lockdown. Well, that I guess was in itself a challenge. Was it your debut as a director?
Yeah, even though I'm not credited, yes, I ended up directing the Thailand part of it.
So thank you COVID, or thank you Ron Howard?
Maybe both. We, there was a number of projects. So first there was Tom's film about subject which you were involved in, I think.
Well, I have a small part.
Okay, so there you are. But then after that, a bunch of projects happened at once, including a Netflix series and
several documentaries also about this.
Several documentaries. I was also involved in the National Geographic documentary, which was also really interesting and I think good documentary. So anyway, our release schedule, our post schedule got brought forward because I think there was a competition of who was going to release first. And when that happened, Ron was, all the cave sets were shot in Australia. And so Ron needed to go back to America to get his vaccine for COVID because it was hard for him to get in Australia, a little bit like Thailand at the time.
Okay.
And then he went to do post in London, and then he called and said, if we're going to release in this schedule, I'm not going to be able to quarantine 14 days in Thailand and shoot and get back and finish the cut. And so, you'll need to do this for me. And I was like, well,
wow.
I'm a producer, not a director. And he said, you'll do fine.
That's a fantastic opportunity.
Yeah.
Was it a happy day?
It was excellent.
I'm referring to Ron Howard.
Oh, I see. You're right. Yeah.
For those very, very, very old listeners.
He's an amazing person and an incredible collaborator. And even, he was in London, so he would come on remote while I was shooting. And, he would get up at a normal time. And so I would be 5 or 6 hours into a scene by the time he woke up. And then he'd come on and say, hey, how's it going? And look at some of the stuff and maybe suggest a shot or two.
Have you seen part of the film? Do you see the scene you shot in the actual film that's been released?
I absolutely. Something I shot is in every scene, I'd say.
Wow, that's big. Did you learn from this experience that you want to be a director full time? Or you know too much about the production process?
It's funny because my line producer, Thai line producer, ended up being like my producer as I directed, and suddenly I was asking for bigger drones and cranes and stuff. He's like, what happened? So our roles just switched. Like, I can see how it works.
That's hilarious.
I loved there's moments of making that in Chiang Mai where we had a moment, if I might, where like, for example, we did 3 weeks of just shooting scenic stuff, a B-roll since the
in Chiang Mai.
In Chiang Mai.
In Chiang Mai, north of
near where the actual cave is. Because a lot of it had been shot in a cave in a cave set in Australia, so Ron really needed to have scenic shots to set it in Thailand, and he also wanted to make that mountain and cave into basically a character, so there's a lot of emotions, and instead of giving me specific shots he wanted for that portion, he wanted he actually gave a list of like almost emotions he needs in different scenes, and to try to shoot it within the natural environment. I had a week of shooting with actors and real scenes as well. So as I prepared for that week with actors, I would go out every morning. I told Ron, I was like, I need to have a good film crew and a drone for all of my prep. And what I'll do is I'll go out. So for example, one of the things he wanted was like some shots of torrential rain on the mountain. So I was like, well, I can't just call up torrential rain on a Tuesday. So what I need to do is be ready for when torrential rain happens. So I scouted.
Directors.
Yeah, right. I scouted, I prepared. So for example, there was a shot I had in my mind, just like a field of giant leaves, those elephant leaves, some tropical field with a mountain in the back with like heavy rain on them. So of course I'd go out and scout it when it wasn't raining. We would dig our ditch for our slider and our camera and set the shot up, shoot it without the rain. Then go back and prep the movie. As I'm in the office and prepping the movie, I'd look out the window and be like, oh my God, here comes a massive storm. We'd like, go out, get in the vans, spot number 3. And then we would race off, set up the camera, and wait for the rain. And there was a couple of moments when I was doing those rain shots where the clouds were swirling and the mountain looked amazing. There was mist and, somebody put on a little bit of music. And I was like, wow, I love my job.
Was it because there was no live actor involved?
No live actor, no screaming producers, and calm. It was our set, and just to Ron really was an amazing collaborator. Let me just go with that, with my shots and vision for it, and I think we got amazing stuff. So anything you see in the entire film that's like scenic is stuff we shot over those 3 or 4 weeks, and then all the Thailand village and street, stuff, and all those shots of the kids on the bicycles going to the cave is all the stuff we shot in that final week.
So your experience with other directors over the past 15 years before this happened nurtured you to be able to suddenly become the director?
Absolutely. One thing leads to the other. I've directed documentary before, but and it wasn't like I came off this and I'm like, oh, I'm a director now. I mean, I love producing, and I'm made for that, and I feel proud of what we accomplished producing. And when you produce a film successfully, you pull together so many different elements into one moment to shoot that project, and that's why projects that stop and stutter and don't quite get done, you lose momentum so easily, because it's using every bit of your skill to pull it together. And when it's working and you see like what you've put together and the filming is smooth and the images on the screen are amazing, it's a great feeling of.
How would you then break down your work and the work of the director?
Well,
Because what you're saying is very, I mean, it's really on the creative side.
yeah, it is. Of course, it is.
The producer has to be involved in the creative journey.
I mean, there's, as we know, there's multiple types of producers, but I think almost all producers are creative. It's a misunderstood thing. Even budgeting is creative. I mean, we budget a project way before we have people working in departments, and so like if I budget a major project, it's going to be like me at my desk in Chiang Mai at midnight, thinking like as a production designer, for example, how if I was designing the scene, how would I design it?
Isn't it frustrating that you go through this creative process to build up a budget, for instance, and then you hand it over to the production in charge of the developing the film, and they talk to the director, and the director comes up with something completely different. I'm sure this happens quite a lot.
That's part of the process. That's fine.
Now, how do you deal with that? Where do you draw the line? Like, this is, or you feel that it has to be this way because of what you know about the place you're going to film, what it will involve in real, and then the actual filming, and then the director vision somewhere far away saying, no, it has to be raining from, earth to the sky.
Great thing about filmmaking is that it's all about human emotion and getting along and collaboration. So I think understanding people, it's why I like to play poker, for example. It's about the psychology of the game. It's not just odds. And so there's always psychology. So I think a lot of it is getting to know a director and how to relate to them, and also the other filmmakers, the director of photography, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, my style, if I'm with a director, I'm like the director's producer, is to always give options. So maybe I have my way to things the direction I would like. But if a director really believes otherwise, then I need to really listen to that and see if I can do that. And if the director starts to go over budget, we say things like, well, sure, you can have the super Technicrane, but would you rather have the super Technicrane or the 100 extras that you asked for? And you'd be like,
Oh, that's tough.
I'll take the 100 extras.
That's
whatever.
super tough. So you ask the director to abandon his vision of a shot.
I don't say no.
Okay. Yeah, you don't say no. It's even worse.
How conniving.
Have you ever been in a situation where you have to deal with the director's vision and it's wrong because of your experience working with talented people, and no, this shot should not be framed this way, or we should not organize the actors that way,
or we choose an actor who I think is wrong for the role? I mean, it's a collaborative process, so all we can do is say our piece. I always have an opinion, and I'm not shy to express it.
You're famous for that.
Yeah, thank you. But I'm not going to I'm not going to impose myself on that process. It has to. If you impose like that, then the next decision becomes harder and harder. So I think then it becomes a kind of battle, which is to be avoided, I think, in filmmaking.
Let's go to masterclass. You said there are many styles, many different meaning for the word producer. Could you briefly tell us what are because the American way and the European way and the Thai way of using the word producer is very different. According to you, Chris, what is a producer?
Well, first of all, it doesn't work like that because it depends on the genre. So, yeah, I know. You ready for an hour? But
I am. Are you? Please.
Actually, for example, just taking two TV series and feature film.
Okay.
The concept of producer is quite different
For TV series and
yes.
feature film.
Yes. So we were just talking about this the other day, actually. So, for example, in a feature film, if you put a large sum of money into a production, you're probably going to be called an executive producer. But there's also an executive producer that's creative. You can have Steven Spielberg would be an executive producer and a director.
What would be his job as an executive producer?
He would sign off on the final budget. So he would help make those decisions, especially when people get famous, they're usually going to be a producer as well. And and then of course you have lots of other types of producers, associate producers and co-producers and supervising producers. Quite common is line producer, which in a feature film is really the person who's in charge of the budget.
The line producer.
The line producer. I like to think of it as they're in charge of every line of the budget.
Makes sense.
Yeah. But then if you take TV series, these are quite different. So writers are producers. So an executive producer will be the lead writer. And there's usually just one non-writing executive producer who will be the director's producer. And so almost all writers in a writer's room will end up with some sort of producer title. So executive producer is quite different. It's not like the money person.
Meaning that they have a say in the crafting of the film.
Yes, absolutely.
As a producer.
Yes, much more creative than an executive producer on a feature film, which is more about the money side, an organization.
The mechanic of producing.
And so, for example, you'll have a showrunner in TV, and the showrunner is like the person that's originally the vision for that TV series, and then almost always a writer and or a director. So in our current project, our showrunner wrote 2 of the episodes, directing 2 of the episodes, looks after the creative of all episodes, and is a producer. So doing multiple things as a showrunner.
The showrunner. I have this quote from David Chase about showrunner, saying a great showrunner is like a master chef combining different ingredients to create a delicious and unforgettable TV series.
And that's because they're a writer. So really the key to doing that, I agree with that, and the key to do that is having a vision that's also written down. And so a good TV series will have multiple writers, and then the showrunner needs to consolidate those visions so it's uniform across the whole TV series. And that's quite different, and there'll be an executive producer. So that's quite different than your typical producer on a feature film.
Without a producer, there is nothing happening.
Absolutely. And the producer is really the one who hires everybody and puts it all together. So, and the final decision generally rests with the producer.
So are you, as a producer, the one who is dealing with egos on set?
Sure.
Does it hurt?
And when there's a problem, believe me, they all call the producer. I think a big part of our job, especially for me in Thailand, is to be like the set psychologist. So there's often conflicts. There's so many different personalities and people who come together for our show. Conflict
because you have cultural gaps or conflict from where?
In Thailand, well, on any show, anywhere, you're going to have conflicts because you're going to have, it's a big collaboration with a lot of people, and people have different visions. And then in Thailand, you have the whole cultural piece to it. On our current project, we have it's a big crew. We have 650 Thai crew, something like that.
And a lot of aliens? I mean, foreigners?
A lot of aliens. We have people coming from 10, 11 countries. England, France, Hungary, Canada, South Africa, Australia, New Zealand.
It's a lot of countries.
A lot of countries. And so we have a lot of Germans in our art department. So, and everybody's really professional, but they have different ways of working.
Of course.
Yeah, and different formats for how, what's set deck and what's props in Germany is quite different than maybe somewhere else and stuff like this. So do
you have a crash course, a cultural session saying this is how we're going to work? How do you handle that?
I'm like, well, when in doubt, do it the Thai way, please. Because you are in Thailand.
Okay.
And we have a system that works, as we know. So I try not to change the entire country where they are visitors into their system.
How big is the current project you're discussing?
It's big. It's the biggest thing we've ever shot. It's, I would say, 5 times bigger than anything's ever come into Thailand.
Kind of a out of space budget?
It's definitely out there.
I mentioned it because I read about it. And anybody who
good.
Yeah.
All good. We obviously I can't say too much because it's a current project and I take the confidentiality
of course
seriously. But
I'm not here to try to get some secrets out of you. But what's the name of this project?
But it is, and a lot of people know about it. But it is a large-scale sci-fi series, and one of the exciting things about it is that it's the first time I think that a major U.S. Hollywood TV series picked Thailand as its home base, as its mothership.
Home base. That's a big thing.
Yeah, it's really big because it's the first season. And so any TV series is going to strive for multiple seasons. We're signing, some actors to 7 seasons, I believe. So as an option. So there's a big vision for a long series, and often Thailand has gotten, like the Serpent was the entire series, but it's a limited series. It's a one season only series from the BBC, and so it's a little bit of a different scale. Whereas we've done episodes of different series. We did 2 episodes of Miss Marvel for Marvel and Disney 2 years ago, and that was big production for the 2 episodes because Marvel. But in this case, the entire series, shooting 110 plus days, takes place in Thailand, and hopefully multiple seasons. So exciting.
So you're saying that you said that the U.S. company decided to home base the series in Thailand. So it means that you are shooting in Thailand scenes that are not taking place in Thailand, or it's not taking. I know it's difficult to be too specific, but what does it mean actually that it's the home base is in Thailand?
Actually, a lot of the series takes place in sets that are built in the studios. So we're building sets across town in multiple studios. It's about, let's say, 70% on set, 70% location, 30% location. So
portrayed as Thailand or portrayed as a place?
A place in the world.
Okay.
Yeah, it's in the future, so it's sci-fi. So it doesn't have to be specific to a place.
So I guess the competition to bring this to Thailand had been very hard, very tough.
Budgeted in 11 countries, I believe.
Wow.
And I think and what I heard from the studio is that the first criteria for deciding where to bring a large-scale series to Thailand is incentive. So whether there's money back from the government, which most countries have, the crew infrastructure, and studios availability. Because countries with more studios, you're able to build more sets. And it's a real a moment for us, I think, because traditionally Thailand was always a location-based country, let's say. A lot of maybe The Hangover was written for Bangkok, so it's an obvious one, but there's a lot of, or The Serpent took place here.
Bangkok,
although The Serpent we shot Thailand for also 8 or 9 countries in the end. But a lot of series will come to Thailand because of jungles or temples or beach scenes. Whereas if you build a set in a studio, the fact is you can build it in any country in the world. Anywhere in the world. And so I guess economy, good art departments come into play. And this is where Thailand used to be this amazingly well-kept secret. And now we can get a series that has major building, multiple sets over multiple studios simultaneously. And that's, and it's a learning curve in some ways. I don't think Thailand's done that before, but exciting. I've learned a lot.
If you had to choose, let's say, 5 films that anyone wants to come and work in Thailand should watch to understand the place, what would they be?
5 films to understand Thailand.
5 can be 4 or 6. I mean,
well, hot on my mind is 13 Lives. I think it's
the Ron Howard movie.
A Ron Howard movie about the cave rescue. I think it shows a kind of amazing piece of Thai culture and Thai sensibility. The way that they were able to, have 10,000 rescue workers come in and work together to rescue the kids, and almost like a miracle. I think that's a very good one. I would watch Changeland. I think it's beautiful, and it really shows it's a little bit like Sideways was for wine country in Napa. So I think Changeland does for southern Thailand, and two men on a journey, an emotional journey. So I would do that. I would I would watch
13 Live, Changeland.
Yeah. What's another good one to really show? I would watch The Serpent.
The Serpent.
Yeah. It's
try to avoid to be in a bad situation with bad people.
So. I think yeah, sure. It's it's a portrait of a murderer, but
not if you ask him. Huh?
Yeah. Well, there you are. But
I'm laughing, but with respect.
Yeah, sure. The Serpent, the whole series, I think we do. I think one of the things we did really well was the period part of it.
It's incredible the way you brought back Bangkok from the 70s. It's 70s, I think.
Yeah, 70s.
It's amazing. I mean, you really, when you know Bangkok a bit, and this is Bangkok of the 70s.
One of our partners, Oliver Ackerman, who helped produce that for me, actually grew up in the 70s in Bangkok as a kid. His father was the German ambassador. And so having him also, the filmmakers would come up with a vision sometimes, and he'd be like, yeah, it wasn't really like that. Here, let me show you how it was. And so I think that really helped to have somebody who was there, who was one of the producers. And I think when we have a limited budget and we're doing period like that, I prefer to bring the frame in. So we're not, if we're limited on budget, instead of doing not a great job on the period, I'd rather do a great job on the period and just have the scale a little bit smaller. I think we did a really good job with that. So we picked our battles of the bigger scenes and then came in on locations to really set that stage right. And I think it's a good example of seeing Thailand and what we can do. So it shows what the Thai departments can do, art department, in terms of pulling off period. But it also shows Thailand in an interesting time in the history here.
So the 3 films you would recommend people to watch to understand Thailand are?
13 Lives, Ron Howard, about the cave rescue. And Changeland, which is Seth Green's a movie which is kind of like Sideways and Napa, but it's in Thailand. And The Serpent, the TV series, which is on Netflix, which shows Thailand in the 70s.
And what about a film that for you is bringing up all the cliche and that people should not refer to?
Well, there's a lot of those. I mean, The Hangover definitely had some of that. Watch Hangover 1. It was a better film.
You are listening to Filming in Thailand, a podcast by Tero Documentary, with your host, Stéphane Lambert.
And we are back with Chris Lowenstein from Living Film and discussing about this game-changing project that is going on today. We are not going to be too specific about the project. You will have some more details at the time of the broadcasting of this podcast in the comment section and in the description. But what you're saying is that now Thailand has matured enough in terms of production capabilities, know-how, team, talents, infrastructure, equipment, so that it can compete effectively with other parts of the world where large projects have been being shot. I'm thinking about Star Wars in North Africa, for instance. And do you see it as a trend, like the industry, the filming industry in Thailand being mature enough to welcome production that are not actually taking place in Thailand?
Yes, absolutely. I think the industry is really growing up, and you see a lot of projects coming in. And to go back to our project 2 years ago, we did 2 episodes of Miss Marvel for Marvel Studios and Walt Disney. And
how many people did you bring into Thailand, and how many people were on set for these 2 episodes?
I had probably my Thai crew was 500 or 600, and I think we brought 150 people in. We had scenes with over 1,000 extras. So some big scale scenes, and 2 full episodes of a Marvel series. Takes quite a lot of preparation, several months of preparing before we shoot it. And we were shooting Thailand entirely for modern day Karachi, Pakistan, on one hand, and then 1940s India on the other.
That's interesting.
Yep.
And why not India?
I think it's a lot easier to do 1940s India here than India, ironically. But there's a lot of filming in India, so it's not that you can't film in India.
That's why I'm asking the question.
Yeah.
Genuine question.
1940s in India now does not look like 1940s India then either. Mm-hmm. So neither place does. So for example, for one of the sequences, we were recreating the partition, where essentially the Muslims in India separated by train and went to establish what is modern day Pakistan. And so we shot near Bangsu station here, controlled 13 tracks of trains with trains on each of them, with people on top of the train and inside the train, with props and set deck of this mass exodus of Muslim Indians to Pakistan. And so this is something that would be hard to pull off in India. It's like the large logistic scenes, let's say.
Huge logistic, but that sounds super fun.
In COVID. And I remember our extras
During COVID.
COVID. Our extras holding area, we had to socially distance our extras. So we had like one plastic chair for each extra separated out. And I have a picture of myself smiling with like 1,000 plastic chairs behind me in this massive circus tent. I mean, amazing scale.
Wow, that sounds completely, crazy and impossible. But that was what happened.
We pulled it off.
There was this film that you premiered in Bangkok. You were kind enough to invite me a few years down the road. Can you tell a bit about this project?
Which one?
So there was more than one. Yeah. And you invited me only to one. What did I do? No, the one that took place. The one that took place in Phuket.
Oh, Changeland.
Changeland,
yeah.
But there was. Yeah. How many did you? Initiate creatively.
It's
that many.
It's hard to say. Not that many. We mostly documentaries when it's been.
Documentaries is one thing.
Yeah,
it's different. It's easier to.
Yeah. Well,
it's easier. It's maybe faster.
Yeah, sure. And to be fair, Changeland was not a script we wrote.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's also not a service job. It was a job where
That's what I meant.
Yeah, we were very much creatively involved. It came to us and is quite low budget but a really nice script with our collaborator Seth Green in LA, and Seth's an amazing collaborator as well. And so I think that process of creatively looking at a feature film and putting it together, it's also really giving. But even projects that weren't my projects, also I think you want to believe in each one and you want to make it as good as possible. And earlier in my career, I got a lot of bad scripts, so we made some of them.
As a service company, you mean?
Yes, as a service company, you have to do that to start up. Changeland, I think it was a really great collaboration because also the actors knew each other for many years, and so.
Can you remind us who they are?
Seth Green was our also lead actor and director on it, right? And we had Macaulay Culkin as in his first role for a long time, and a lot of other actors, but almost all the actors were child actors originally. So they Seth told me at one point that if a child actor is still acting, they're going to be incredibly professional, but otherwise they're going to be destroyed. So it's one of the two. And one of the things that the actors did is, because they were also close to the project, is they memorized the entire script. So
that helps a lot.
It helps so much. Usually, before you get to a scene, they'll remember their lines and come to set that day, and we'll give them sides of the script so they'll remember their lines. And still often there'll be some lines forgotten, and we'll do multiple takes. But in this case, they all memorized all scenes. So on some days we could just, which is great, and we talked about it. So on some days we could just switch scenes. We'd be like, why don't we try the scene where they meet the first time right here in the lobby, and then we just do the scene. So it
like indie film.
It was indie film. So it creates this great flexibility and creativity. And also, I think everybody stayed together in one hotel, including the Thai crew. And it was very important to us that we pull everybody together to one group. Where often, if it's a bigger Hollywood film, people are in multiple places, and it's somewhat segregated by above the line or below the line, and actors and crew and whatnot. And so in this case, we were like one big family, and I think it really showed.
I'm going to bring you back in time to meet your own self at the age of 20.
This is the time traveling machine.
What would be the interaction you would have with your own self? Your own younger self?
Myself at 20. Get a haircut.
We want a picture now. Yeah, please follow him. We need a picture.
I was a real hippie. Yeah.
Where were you at 20?
I went to college in Beloit College in Wisconsin. So I knew in my heart of hearts I wasn't going to stay in the States. It wasn't really the country for me. It never has been. And I thought, I know it's funny, I knew that from a young age. And I thought, well, let's go to the heartland before we get out. Because growing up in Oregon is quite different than that. So I went to Wisconsin and then I got out. And so I think, and I was just about to graduate at 20. And I think I would probably tell myself that, don't worry, you're going to make it wherever you go. Because at the time, I have to say I was quite worried about going to LA. Chris, trust your heart and explore the world. Although that is what I ended up doing anyway. But I would tell myself that because I also made, a lot of question myself in terms of the decisions. And moving to a different country at an early age like that is not easy. You're leaving a lot of friends and family behind. There was no internet. There was, to call.
There was no internet.
Imagine, young people.
Electricity?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Just the beginning.
Hey, Chris, you're going to get more and more connected. Don't worry. You'll be able to call your mom on a computer in a few years. So don't worry about it.
Yeah, video calls.
Yeah, imagine. It was Star Trek only at that time.
Yes. Beam me up. What are you saying to all these people that are in their 20s, even 30s, coming to you and say, hey, what is your advice for me to be successful? I want to be a producer like you. I want to direct film. I want to make it in this crazy industry. What do you tell them?
Go for it. I think there's plenty of room for...
To people you actually like.
Yeah, okay, right. Good luck. I think people should follow their passions. And, we need to believe in what we do. And so if that's really what they want to do, one of the great things about the film industry, I think, like we were talking about, what does a producer do? I think a lot of people don't really have that idea. It's just a concept. Oh, I want to be a producer. Or I want to be a director. But the truth is that there's so many different roles for people. And one of the things I've been able to do in my career is to take people who are starting and kind of realize that maybe they're in the wrong position and maybe they need to just move over to this position, which would be better for them. And then suddenly they find something they love and you get great loyalty back from starting people in certain roles. Like when I was in film school, I thought that somebody should tell the students, like, hey, if you need a lot of sleep, you could probably forget it now. Like,
yes, that's good advice.
Right. If you need that 8 or 9 hours a night, well, maybe go into something else.
How many hours do you
writer?
Yes.
Not many, a lot of the time. And so having that drive, but also realizing that, like, there's so many different roles. So it may be that, like, you try to be a producer, you don't like it, it's not for you, or maybe you're not good with numbers, so you're not a good line producer. But just try different roles and something will click, I'm sure.
What is your flaw or your weakness that you had to fight so that you could be successful, or that you had to fight not to fail?
Well, I think most of my professional life has been in Thailand, so a lot of it for me is about integrating with the culture here and the people. So it's quite different than a lot of people's paths. Like if I was in LA, it would be very different. I'm sure my life would be quite different. I'm sure I'd still be a producer, but it would be different. Living in Beverly Hills, and I can think about my swimming pool, but I don't have a swimming pool here.
But the view you have from your office is quite good.
And I grow my own rice. So.
You grow your own rice.
I'm okay. And I'm with my wife now. We're gonna be 30 years soon, and it's a cross-cultural marriage. And
congrats.
Thank you. And this is a similar thing. Like cross-cultural marriages are not easy, and we need to let go of some of ourself and have compromise. And I feel like production here is similar. I need to produce films at high level, but also to bring everybody with me and in a way that is copacetic and that people enjoy the process. So that was the biggest challenge.
Before we part, I would like to offer you the award for Best Guest Ever at Filming in Thailand, at least for this episode. I have to tell you which was everybody gets the
Guest of this episode.
best guest of this
I'm
episode.
glad I'm the only guest of the episode. I feel very honored.
So here is the award, the official T-shirt of Bangkok International Documentary Award and Film Festival, one of our partners. Chris, it's been a thrill. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Stefan.
Thank you for being such a great guest and, talking openly about so many things. And I know that you try not to talk about some stuff and you ended up giving us many details. So thank you for that.
Okay, people, fantastic. That's a wrap.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
That was Filming in Thailand, an original podcast brought to you by Taro Documentary on Rudy Podcast, with your host, Stefan Londe.
Thank you for listening and stay tuned for our next episode of Filming in Thailand. Nice, thank you. Thank you so much.
Was that all right?
It was fantastic. We talked for quite some time.
For a while, huh? Yeah, well, you can edit it down. Take my bad answers out.
We need only 2 minutes and a half for this episode. No.
I like it. 15-second cut down.
Yeah, I want your name for it.